My name is Frank Christensen, and I'm the coordinator of officials in IFAF Europe. This is the third of 5 training tapes dealing with defensive pass interference. And today we're talking about probably the toughest of the categories, which is the hook and turn. And it's tough because it happens so close to the ball arriving. But we'll have a look at some examples of what is and what isn't defensive pass interference, and we'll talk about how to recognize it and how to call it consistently. But before we get to the game film, let's have a look to see what the rulebook and the MOFO have to say on this. In the rulebook, we go to Rule 738, defensive pass interference. C, defensive pass interference is contact beyond the neutral zone by a Team B player whose intent to impede an eligible opponent is obvious and could prevent the opponent the opportunity of receiving a catchable forward pass. When in question, a legal forward pass is catchable. Defensive pass interference occurs only after a legal forward pass is thrown. It is not pass interference 1. When, after the snap, opposing players immediately charge and establish contact with opponents at a point that is within 1 yard beyond the neutral zone. 2. When 2 or more eligible players are making a simultaneous and bona fide attempt to reach, catch, or bat the pass. Eligible players of either team have equal rights to the ball. 3. When a Team B player legally contacts an opponent before the pass is thrown. And finally, 4. When there is contact by a Team B player that otherwise would be pass interference during a down in which a Team A potential kicker from scrimmage kick formation simulates a scrimmage kick by throwing the ball high and deep. In the MOFO, we go to Section 3.3 contact fouls. 8. Defensive pass interference. A. Actions that constitute defensive pass interference include 1. Not playing the ball. Early contact by a defender who's not playing the ball that impedes or restricts the receiver's opportunity to make the catch. 2. Playing through an opponent. Playing through the receiver, contacting him in the back or on the side of him furthest from the ball, even if attempting to play the ball. 3. Grabbing an arm. Grabbing the receiver's arm in a manner that restricts his opportunity to catch a pass. 4. Arm bar. Extending an arm across the receiver's body to impede his ability to catch a pass, whether or not the defender is playing the ball. 5. Cutoff. Cutting off or riding a receiver out of the path to the ball by making contact with him without playing the ball before the defender looks for the ball. And finally, 6. Hook and turn, which is the topic of this training tape. Hooking a receiver around the waist that causes his body to turn prior to or even slightly after the ball arriving, even if the defender is trying to get to the ball. B. Actions that do not constitute defensive pass interference include 1. Incidental contact by a defender's hands, arms, or body in the act of moving to the ball that does not materially affect the route of the receiver. If in doubt as to whether the route was materially affected, there is no interference. 2. Inadvertent tangling of feet when both or neither players are playing the ball. 3. Contact that occurs during a pass that is clearly uncatchable by the involved players. 4. Laying a hand on the receiver that does not turn or impede him until after the ball has arrived. 5. Contact on a Hail Mary pass unless it is clear and conspicuous pass interference. C. Further notes. 1. A stationary player in position to catch the ball who is displaced from his position has been fouled. 2. It is never pass interference if the defensive player touches the ball before contacting the opponent. 3. Interference must be conspicuous to be called. 4. Remember that the defense has as much right to the ball as the offense. 5. It is crucial to identify which players are playing the ball and which are not. 6. Normally, an offensive receiver will try to catch the ball with 2 hands. Often, a defender will try to bat or deflect the ball with only 1 hand. If the defender goes up with only 1 hand, know what the other one is doing. 7. When judging whether a pass is catchable, imagine how far the receiver could have run and how high or wide he could have jumped if he had not been impeded. And finally, 8. There is no foul when contact is simultaneous with the ball being touched, the bang-bang situation. When in doubt, contact is simultaneous with the ball being touched. And that was the theory. Now, let's have a look at some game film. You know, it's funny, we don't usually get very good footage from this angle or this field level, but here we actually get lucky. We're looking at the receiver here on this first play, right off the back judge's right shoulder. And he's going to come out here, right there, and we're going to see that contact fairly obviously. See right there, we've got an arm across, and there he is being turned. So we've got the hook in the arm, and we've got the receiver being turned. He would probably try to face the ball as it's coming down, but because the defender is turning him, he can't do that. So right there we've got the hook and we've got the turn, and it's a really good job by the back judge to get around it. It's not easy to come from one key over to another and see enough to call a hook and turn, but here he does it, and it's a correct call and very good job by this back judge. In this play, we're looking at the receiver at the top of the screen, the far receiver, and as he's coming around there, you can tell that his outside arm, so that would be his left arm right there, is being held back, and maybe even the hand is on the hip, because you can see right there as the ball arrives, he's kind of turning his back to the ball, and he certainly wouldn't do that unless he was being turned around. And here it happens fairly early before the ball arrives. Typically it happens right when the ball arrives. That's the toughest part of this. But here, see right there, the ball is there, and he's already been turned all the way around away from the ball. So this is a good call by both the back judge and the deep wing. In comparison, let's have a look at the receiver closest to the screen here and see how his upper body moves. So that's the play. So right there, we certainly have a hand, the defender's hand on the left side of the hip right there, and we have a good potential for a hook and turn. However, if you look at number 9, the receiver's upper body, he really isn't being turned. He has every opportunity to catch the ball, because he's not being turned. So just because there's a hand on the hip doesn't make it a hook and turn. It's one part of it, but unless A9's upper body is being turned away from the ball, we don't have a foul. So in this situation, this is a good no call by these officials. In this last play, we're looking at the outside receiver here, but before we do that, let's just have a look at some mechanics in this wing. So the receiver lines up, he wants to be in the backfield, which he is, and the receiver, or the wing, correctly signals him off the line. So what happens is probably he gets a recognition or an acknowledgement from across the line of scrimmage from his wing buddy. So he takes his arm down the wing, and the recommendation really is to keep your arm up until the snap. And the reason is, let's say they shift out of this, or let's say the receiver moves up on the line of scrimmage. As the wing, you really don't have any any possibility, any opportunity to signal that across the field to your wing buddy, if you've already taken your hand down or your arm down. So keep it up until the snap, and then if the receiver moves up, or the two receivers switch on the line of scrimmage, then when the receiver moves, you can take your arm down to indicate that now he's on the line of scrimmage. So please keep it up until the ball is snapped. Now, let's have a look at this receiver and see this type of hook and turn that we have here, because there are a number of things that are interesting here. So right there, we certainly have, we've got the hook, and we're also turning the receiver. So this is a typical hook and turn. However, the ball is being snapped right on the 40-yard line, and the contact certainly starts right on the line of scrimmage. And you could argue that since the pass interference has to happen beyond the line of scrimmage to be pass interference, that this does not meet that requirement. What we do have, where we don't worry about where the line of scrimmage is we do have defensive holding, so we certainly could have called that instead. But if you are going to judge that now we're 1 yard beyond the line of scrimmage, and we do want to have this as a DPI, the wing does a good job of throwing the ball, or throwing his flag clearly beyond the line of scrimmage to indicate that was where the foul was. So a lot of different stuff to keep track of and to think about in what seems like a very mundane play. But that was this training tape for defensive pass interference hook and turn. I hope you found something you can use on the field.